The biggest fear no one talks about. Imagine this. You put your phone down, turn off the TV, and sit alone in silence. No notifications, no background noise, just you. And almost immediately, an unsettling feeling creeps in. Your mind starts racing. Thoughts you've been avoiding begin to surface. Am I truly happy? Am I living the life I want? What if I'm not on the right path? This is why most people fear solitude, not because they dislike being alone, but because they are afraid of facing themselves. We spend our lives surrounded by distractions, constantly plugged in, always engaged. We scroll through social media, drown ourselves in work, and fill every moment with noise just to avoid the discomfort of silence. But what if I told you that solitude isn't something to fear? What if I told you it's the key to everything you've been searching for? For centuries, solitude has been misunderstood. We've been taught that being alone is a sign of loneliness, of isolation, of something missing. But this couldn't be further from the truth. The Buddha himself embraced solitude, not as an escape, but as a way to understand himself and the world more deeply. He realized that without moments of stillness, without stepping away from the noise, clarity is impossible. But in today's world, solitude feels almost unnatural. If you spend a Saturday night alone, society makes you feel like you're missing out. If you sit by yourself at a cafe, people assume you have no friends. We equate solitude with social failure, when in reality, it is the foundation of self-discovery. Some of the greatest minds in history, Einstein, Da Vinci, Steve Jobs, knew this. They used solitude as a tool, a secret weapon to tap into their creativity, wisdom, and purpose. So here's the real question. What if we've been looking at solitude the wrong way? What if, instead of being a void to escape from, it's the very thing that will help us unlock our greatest potential? In this video, we're going to break down the myths surrounding solitude, explore how the Buddha used it to find enlightenment, and uncover the powerful ways it can transform your life. Because at some point, we all experience solitude. The question is, will you run from it, or will you embrace it? Solitude versus loneliness. What's the difference? There is a moment in life when we all experience being alone. But what does that really mean? For some, it feels peaceful, like a break from the chaos of the world. For others, it feels empty, like something is missing. The difference between solitude and loneliness is not in whether we are physically alone, but in how we perceive that experience. Loneliness is the painful feeling of being disconnected, not just from others, but from ourselves. Solitude, on the other hand, is a conscious choice, a space where we meet ourselves, reflect, and grow. This reminds me of Nikola Tesla, one of history's greatest inventors. Tesla once said, "Be alone. That is the secret of invention. Be alone. That is when ideas are born." Despite his brilliance, he often lived in solitude, not because he was isolated, but because he found power in being alone. He understood that solitude wasn't something to be feared. It was a tool for deeper thought, innovation, and self-discovery. His story reveals something profound. Solitude is where breakthroughs happen, while loneliness is where suffering begins. In today's world, loneliness has become an epidemic. Despite being more connected than ever through technology, many people feel unseen, unheard, and isolated. We check our phones constantly, seeking messages, likes, and comments as validation that we exist in someone else's world. But true connection is not found in notifications. It is found in presence, in meaningful moments of engagement. Studies in psychology confirm this. Brené Brown, a leading researcher on vulnerability and human connection, explains that loneliness isn't about the absence of people. It's about the absence of meaningful connection, especially with oneself. She says, "True belonging doesn't require us to change who we are. It requires us to be who we are. If we don't feel connected to our own inner world. No amount of external validation will fill that void. The Buddha also understood this deeply. He often retreated into solitude, not to escape the world, but to understand it. He saw solitude as a practice, a way to cultivate self-awareness and inner peace. He taught that being alone does not mean being abandoned. It means creating the space to listen, to think, to reconnect with the essence of who we are. Monks still follow this wisdom today, spending years in silent meditation, strengthening their minds, and developing resilience. The greatest thinkers, artists, and philosophers have used solitude as a tool, not to isolate themselves, but to cultivate insight, creativity, and clarity. Yet, many of us fear solitude because it forces us to face ourselves. In the quiet, the thoughts we have buried rise to the surface. The insecurities, the doubts, the regrets, we cannot outrun them when we are alone. But here's the truth. Solitude is not the enemy. It is the gateway to understanding. It is in solitude that we learn to be comfortable with our own minds, that we realize we are enough, that we begin to see life with clarity rather than through the lens of distraction. Research from neuroscientists shows that periods of solitude improve cognitive function, problem-solving, and emotional regulation. It is when the mind is free from external noise that it finds its deepest insights. So the question is, how do we shift our perspective? Instead of seeing solitude as isolation, we must see it as an opportunity. Instead of fearing it, we must welcome it. Because solitude will come for all of us at some point in life. The difference is whether we will resist it or embrace it. What if, instead of running from solitude, you leaned into it? What if, instead of seeing it as something to escape, you saw it as a chance to know yourself better than ever before? The Buddha's Journey: How Solitude Led to Enlightenment. In the mid-19th century, a man named Henry David Thoreau left behind the comforts of society to live alone in a small cabin in the woods. He wanted to strip life down to its essentials, to understand what it meant to truly live. He wrote, "I went to the woods because I wished to live deliberately, to front only the essential facts of life, and see if I could not learn what it had to teach." Thoreau's search for truth mirrors a much older journey. The journey of a prince who walked away from a palace in search of enlightenment. Long before Thoreau, Siddhartha Gautama lived in unimaginable luxury. Every need met, every desire fulfilled. Yet, no matter how much he had, something always felt missing. He saw the world beyond his palace walls, people suffering, growing old, dying. And for the first time, he realized that no amount of wealth or comfort could protect him from the truth of existence. This realization set him on a path that would change the course of history. But his journey did not begin with wisdom, it began with solitude. He left behind his royal life, his titles, and all worldly attachments, wandering into the forests in search of truth. At first, he sought guidance from teachers, practiced extreme asceticism, and pushed his body and mind to the brink. He starved himself, denied himself sleep, believing that suffering could bring him closer to enlightenment. But after years of struggle, he realized something profound. Neither indulgence nor self-denial would lead him to the truth. The answers he sought were not found in extremes, but in stillness. And so, he sat alone beneath a Bodhi tree, vowing not to rise until he understood the nature of suffering. For 49 days, he remained in deep meditation. He watched his thoughts, his desires, his fears, seeing them not as truths, but as illusions created by the mind. He realized that suffering arises from attachment, from clinging to things that are impermanent, from the endless craving for more. And in that moment of absolute clarity, he awakened. He saw the world as it truly was, free from delusions, free from suffering. He had become the Buddha. His story is not just about spiritual enlightenment. It's about the power of solitude to transform the mind. The Buddha did not find wisdom in debate, in books, or in constant engagement with the world. He found it in stillness, in silence, in solitude. Modern psychology supports this idea. Neuroscientists have found that solitude enhances creativity, strengthens emotional resilience, and improves problem-solving abilities. When the brain is free from distractions, it can process information more deeply, leading to greater clarity and insight. Yet, in today's world, solitude is rare. We live in an age of constant stimulation, endless notifications, social media, a culture that equates busyness with success. We are taught to fear being alone, to always be engaged, always be productive. But what if the very thing we are avoiding is the key to what we seek? What if solitude is not something to escape, but something to embrace? The Buddha's journey is a reminder that the answers we seek are not out there in the noise of the world. They are within us, waiting to be heard. The only question is, are we willing to listen? Finding clarity in stillness, the power of a quiet mind. One of the most powerful minds in modern history, Steve Jobs, had a secret weapon. It wasn't technology. It wasn't innovation. It was stillness. He once said, "I never had a great idea in the middle of a meeting. The best ideas come in the shower, on a walk, when I allow myself to do nothing." Jobs understood something that many of us overlook. The mind needs space to think. In the silence, clarity arises. But in today's world, stillness is almost extinct. We live in a society that glorifies busyness. Every moment is filled with something: emails, deadlines, notifications. If we're not working, we feel guilty. If we're not entertained, we feel restless. We have trained ourselves to believe that productivity is the key to clarity. But what if we've been getting it wrong? What if clarity isn't found in doing more, but in doing less? The Buddha knew this truth. Centuries ago, he compared the mind to a lake. When it is disturbed, the water is cloudy, chaotic, and unclear. But when the lake is still, the water becomes transparent, and we can finally see what lies beneath. This is what happens in solitude. When the mind stops reacting to constant input, it begins to process, reflect, and reveal deeper insights. Modern science supports this. Neuroscientists have found that the brain enters its most creative and insightful states not when it is working, but when it is resting. The default mode network, DMN, the part of the brain responsible for self-reflection and deep thinking, activates when we are not engaged in tasks. This is why our best ideas come when we least expect them, while walking, showering, or simply staring out the window. Stillness is not inactivity. It is the mind's most powerful state of processing. Philosophers throughout history have understood this. Marcus Aurelius, the Great Roman emperor, practiced solitude daily, writing, "Nowhere can man find a quieter or more untroubled retreat than in his own soul." Even the Stoics, known for their discipline and action, recognized that without moments of stillness, wisdom is impossible. Yet, we fear stillness. We mistake it for laziness, for inaction, for something unproductive. But the reality is, if we do not create space for silence, we are at the mercy of a chaotic mind. In today's world, where attention is constantly hijacked, stillness is a superpower. The question is, when was the last time you truly allowed your mind to be still? Not just physically, but mentally? If you don't have 5 minutes to sit in silence, do you really have control over your own mind? Maybe the answers you've been searching for aren't in the next email, the next task, the next notification. Maybe, just like Steve Jobs, the clarity you seek is waiting in the silence. The only question is, are you willing to sit with it? Who are you without external noise? The identity shift. Jim Carrey, one of the most famous actors in Hollywood, once said, I wish everyone could get rich and famous so they can see that it's not the answer. He had everything: fame, fortune, success. But something was missing. He realized that for years, he had been playing a role, not just on screen, but in life. He had become what the world expected him to be, but deep down, he didn't truly know who he was. And he's not alone. From the moment we are born, we are shaped by the expectations of others. Society gives us labels. Schools tell us what intelligence looks like. Social media defines what success should be. Even our closest friends and family, with the best intentions, influence our choices, what career to pursue, what kind of life to live, even how we should think. But the real question is, how much of who you are is truly yours, and how much has been shaped by the noise around you? Psychologist Carl Jung once said, "The world will ask you who you are, and if you don't know, the world will tell you." This is why solitude is so powerful. When we step away from the expectations, the voices, the distractions, something profound happens. We begin to hear ourselves for the first time. But that can be terrifying. Many people fear solitude, not because they dislike being alone, but because they are afraid of what they might find. What if the things they have been chasing were never truly theirs? What if they've spent years climbing a ladder only to realize it's leaning against the wrong wall? Buddhist philosophy has understood this for centuries. The Buddha himself left behind a life of privilege not because he had to, but because he knew that true understanding could only come from within. He sought solitude, not as a retreat, but as a way to strip away illusion, to find truth without interference. He realized that identity is not something given to us by society. It is something we uncover when we quiet the external voices. Modern research supports this. Studies in psychology show that people who spend time in solitude develop a stronger sense of self. Without constant input from others, they clarify their own values, beliefs, and personal direction. This is why some of history's greatest thinkers, Buddha, Jung, Carey, and many more, have embraced moments of solitude. They understood that until you remove the noise, you cannot hear your own voice. So here's the challenge. Spend just 1 hour in silence. No phone, no music, no distractions, just you. See what thoughts arise. You might feel restless at first. You might feel uncomfortable. But if you stick with it, you might just discover something profound. The real you, the one who has been waiting beneath all the noise. The question is, are you ready to meet yourself? The joy of missing out, JOMO instead of FOMO. You check your phone. Another friend just bought a new house. Someone else just landed their dream job. Another person is on vacation in Europe, drinking wine by the sea. Meanwhile, you're sitting at home, in your regular life, doing regular things. And suddenly, a thought creeps in. Am I falling behind? Should I be doing more? This is FOMO, fear of missing out. It's the modern epidemic of believing that life is happening somewhere else, and that if we're not constantly keeping up, we're losing. Social media fuels this anxiety, making us feel like our lives are never enough. We chase experiences, say yes to everything, fill every moment with activity, not because we genuinely want to, but because we're afraid of being left out. But here's the truth. Most of what we think we're missing out on isn't actually bringing happiness to the people doing it either. That's where JOMO, the joy of missing out, comes in. JOMO isn't about isolation. It's about choice. It's about realizing that fulfillment doesn't come from doing more. It comes from doing what truly matters to you. Bill Gates understands this well. Every year, he takes a think week, a full week alone in a cabin with no internet, no meetings, no distractions. It's during this time of solitude that some of his most innovative ideas emerge. Because when we step away from the noise, we finally have space to think. Science backs this up. Studies show that people who embrace solitude and limit social comparison have lower stress levels, greater life satisfaction, and deeper relationships. In fact, A Harvard study found that those who practice gratitude and mindful disconnection experience more long-term happiness than those who are always chasing the next big thing. Buddhist philosophy has been teaching this for thousands of years. The Buddha warned about the endless cycle of craving, always wanting more, always looking outward for fulfillment. But happiness isn't found in more. It's found in enough. And the only way to know what enough looks like for you is to listen, not to the world, but to yourself. So here's a challenge. For the next 24 hours, unplug. Say no to something that doesn't truly bring you joy. Spend time in stillness. See what happens. JOMO isn't about rejecting life. It's about choosing it. The question is, are you brave enough to step away from the noise and embrace what truly matters? Solitude as a stress relief tool. It's 10 p.m. You're exhausted, but your mind won't stop racing. The emails you didn't answer, the messages piling up, the to-do list that seems endless. You tell yourself that tomorrow you'll catch up, that next week will be easier. But deep down, you know this cycle never really stops. Stress has become a constant companion, a background noise that never fades. We try to manage it with vacations, entertainment, socializing, chasing external relief, hoping that if we just do enough, we'll feel at peace. But what if relief doesn't come from doing more, but from doing less? What if the most powerful stress relief tool isn't another trip, another night out, or another distraction, but solitude? Science confirms this. When we are constantly connected, our brains stay in a heightened state of stress, releasing cortisol, the hormone responsible for anxiety and burnout. But solitude activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the body's natural recovery mode, allowing us to reset. Studies from Stanford University show that even 10 minutes of intentional solitude can lower stress levels, improve focus, and enhance emotional stability. The Buddha understood this long before modern science. He didn't retreat into solitude to escape life. He did it to understand it more clearly. He recognized that suffering isn't just caused by external events, but by our reactions to them. And when we are constantly engaged, we react impulsively to stress, getting lost in frustration, overwhelm, and mental exhaustion. Solitude gives us space, not just physical space, but mental space, to step back, breathe, and regain control over our thoughts. Many of the world's most successful people recognize this. Steve Jobs took long walks alone to clear his mind. Oprah Winfrey dedicates quiet time each morning to reset her focus. Brené Brown, a leading researcher in emotional resilience, explains that solitude is not about isolation. It's about creating a space where your thoughts can breathe. The problem is, we fear solitude because we confuse it with loneliness. But they are not the same. Loneliness is disconnection from others. Solitude is reconnection with yourself. It's in solitude that we regain clarity, that we remind ourselves that we are not just what we do, not just the tasks we complete, but something deeper. So, here's a challenge. For the next 10 minutes, sit in silence. No phone, no distractions. Just breathe. See what happens. You might feel restless at first, but if you allow yourself to sit in stillness, you might just discover something profound, that the peace you've been searching for isn't out there. It's been within you all along. Emotional healing through solitude. Robin Williams, one of the most beloved actors of all time, brought joy to millions. But behind his laughter was a silent battle with emotions he rarely let the world see. He, like many, knew how to make others happy but struggled to sit with his own pain. This isn't just the story of a celebrity. It's the story of all of us. The heartbreaks we bury, the disappointments we suppress, the wounds that no one sees. In a world that tells us to stay busy, to keep moving, to fill every moment with productivity, solitude often feels uncomfortable. We distract ourselves, scrolling through our phones, working late, surrounding ourselves with people, anything to avoid being alone with our thoughts. But emotions don't disappear just because we ignore them. They wait. And when we don't make space to process them, they find other ways to show up through anxiety, burnout, or a constant feeling of emptiness. Science proves what ancient wisdom has always known. Studies from Harvard show that solitude helps regulate emotions, allowing the brain to process experiences without external interference. When we are always engaged, our minds stay in survival mode, reacting rather than understanding. But in stillness, the nervous system resets. We begin to see our emotions not as threats, but as signals. This is why therapists encourage journaling, mindfulness, and intentional solitude, because they create a safe space to process and heal. The Buddha understood this deeply. He taught that suffering isn't just about pain, it's about our relationship to pain. When we resist emotions, when we push them away, we add layers of suffering. But when we allow ourselves to sit with them, to observe them without judgment, something powerful happens. We realize that emotions are like waves. They rise, they peak, and they pass. And in that understanding, healing begins. Modern thinkers agree. Brené Brown, a leading researcher in emotional resilience, explains, "We cannot selectively numb emotions. When we numb sadness, we also numb joy. The more we avoid feeling, the more disconnected we become, not just from pain, but from life itself." Solitude isn't about isolation. It's about reconnection with ourselves, with our emotions, with the truth that's been buried beneath the noise. So here's a challenge. For just 5 minutes today, sit with your emotions. No distractions, no phone. Just breathe and feel whatever comes up. It might be uncomfortable at first, but if you allow yourself this space, you might discover something profound, that the healing you've been looking for isn't out there. It's within you, and solitude is the key to unlocking it. Creativity and innovation. Why great thinkers embrace solitude. Elon Musk once revealed that some of his best ideas don't come from meetings or brainstorming sessions, but from moments of complete solitude, long walks, quiet reflections, sitting alone with his thoughts. This might seem surprising in a world that glorifies collaboration and constant communication. But history proves that the greatest breakthroughs aren't born in noise. They emerge from silence. Creativity isn't just about gathering information. It's about allowing the mind to process, to wander, to make unexpected connections. But in today's world, our minds are rarely given that chance. We are constantly bombarded with notifications, emails, and social media updates, leaving little room for deep thinking. This is why your best ideas often come in the shower, on a quiet walk, or when you least expect them. When we remove distractions, the brain activates the default mode network, DMN, a state where deeper insights and creative solutions emerge. The Buddha understood this long before neuroscience confirmed it. He retreated into solitude not to escape the world, but to gain clarity about it. Steve Jobs took long walks alone to refine his ideas. Nikola Tesla, one of the greatest inventors of all time, credited his moments of complete isolation for his most revolutionary discoveries. Even creative geniuses like Virginia Woolf, Franz Kafka, and Georgia O'Keeffe embraced solitude as a necessary condition for their best work. Science backs this up. A Harvard study found that people who spend regular time alone show significantly higher levels of creative problem-solving and originality than those who are constantly engaged with external input. Solitude allows the mind to break free from conventional thinking, to explore ideas without judgment, and to develop truly innovative concepts. Yet today, solitude is often mistaken for loneliness. The pressure to always be connected, always be producing, makes stepping away feel unnatural. But those who understand the power of solitude know that it's not about isolation, it's about immersion. It's about giving the mind the space it needs to move beyond surface-level thinking and into something deeper. So here's a challenge. For the next 24 hours, eliminate all unnecessary distractions. No social media, no notifications. Just allow your mind to breathe. See what happens. Creativity doesn't come from constant stimulation. It comes from silence. The question is, are you willing to step into it? Mental resilience. How solitude makes you stronger. Michael Jordan, one of the greatest athletes in history, wasn't just known for his physical dominance. He was known for his mental resilience. But what many people don't realize is that Jordan's strength didn't come from constant competition or external validation. It came from solitude. He would often sit alone in the locker room before games, blocking out the noise, centering himself, and visualizing his success. He understood that true mental toughness isn't built in the spotlight. It's built in the quiet moments when no one is watching. Life is unpredictable. One day, everything feels stable, and the next, you're facing setbacks, financial struggles, personal loss, unexpected failures. How do you respond? Most people panic. They seek distraction. They look for validation. But the strongest individuals do something different. They turn inward. Because resilience isn't about avoiding hardship. It's about having the inner stability to withstand it. And solitude is one of the most powerful ways to build that stability. Psychologists have found that people who regularly spend time alone develop higher emotional regulation, better stress management, and stronger problem-solving skills. When we are constantly surrounded by others, we absorb their fears, their expectations, their anxieties. But solitude gives us the chance to separate external pressures from our own thoughts. It forces us to sit with our challenges rather than escaping them. This is where resilience is built, not in denial, but in acceptance and strategic thinking. History proves this. Nelson Mandela spent 27 years in prison, much of it in isolation. Instead of letting solitude break him, he used it to strengthen his mind. He read, he reflected, he prepared. And when he emerged, he was not only mentally unshaken, he was ready to lead. The Buddha did the same. He sought solitude not to escape life, but to understand it. These moments of silence are what shape true leaders, true warriors, true survivors. Yet, today's world teaches the opposite. We are told that strength comes from constant activity, from networking, from staying busy. But what if true resilience isn't found in movement, but in stillness? What if your ability to handle stress, to make better decisions, to truly understand yourself is hidden in the moments you spend alone? Solitude forces you to confront your own mind. And in that confrontation, you find clarity, discipline, and the kind of strength that doesn't waver when life gets difficult. So here's a challenge. For the next 10 minutes, sit in complete silence. No phone, no distractions, just you. Observe your thoughts. See what emotions surface. Instead of avoiding them, face them. Let them teach you something. Because in those quiet moments, you're not just sitting still, you're building the kind of mental resilience that no challenge can break. Solitude and independence. Stop relying on others for happiness. Robin Williams was one of the most beloved comedians of all time, bringing laughter to millions, yet struggling with an inner loneliness no one could see. His story isn't unique. How many times have we seen people who appear to have it all? Fame, love, admiration, yet still feel empty. It raises a deep question. What if happiness isn't something we find in others, but something we must create within ourselves? We are conditioned to believe that happiness comes from relationships, from external validation, from being surrounded by the right people. And while connection is important, there's a hidden danger in relying on it. What happens when those people leave? When circumstances change? If your happiness depends on others, then it's never truly yours. It's borrowed, fragile, and constantly at risk. True independence isn't about rejecting relationships. It's about ensuring they are a choice, not a necessity. It's about knowing that your fulfillment isn't tied to someone else's presence. Solitude is where this self-sufficiency is built. It's where you learn that you are enough, without external validation, without constant reassurance. Many people fear solitude, believing it to be empty, but the truth is, it's where we become whole. Science confirms this. A Harvard study found that people who embrace solitude experience higher levels of self-confidence, emotional stability, and long-term happiness. When we constantly seek happiness through others, we fall into cycles of dependence, needing validation, approval, or distraction. But solitude teaches us that fulfillment isn't something we need to find in someone else. It's something we cultivate within ourselves. The greatest minds in history understood this. The Buddha left behind wealth and comfort to find the truth within himself. Marcus Aurelius wrote his greatest philosophical works in solitude. Henry David Thoreau retreated to the woods to discover the essence of self-reliance. These figures didn't turn away from the world. They mastered themselves first so they could engage with it more fully. Yet today's world teaches the opposite. Social media fuels the illusion that being alone means being left out, that solitude is a void rather than a source of strength. But the truth is, the happiest people in relationships are the ones who don't need them to feel complete. They enter relationships from a place of abundance, not lack. They do not look to others to fill a void, but to share in the joy they already possess. So here's the challenge. For just 15 minutes today, disconnect. No social media, no reaching out for validation. Just sit with yourself, listen to your thoughts, and be fully present. Feel the discomfort if it comes. Notice the peace that follows. Repeat this daily and watch as your need for external validation slowly disappears. Because when you find happiness within, you are free. Free from dependency, free from fear, and free to engage with the world on your own terms. Finding your true purpose through solitude. Jim Carrey once said, "I wish everyone could get rich and famous and have everything they ever dreamed of, so they can see that it's not the answer." How many times have we heard stories of people who seem to have it all? Money, success, admiration, yet feel completely lost. Why does this happen? It's because purpose isn't something we gain through achievement. It's something we discover within ourselves. But in today's world, where every moment is filled with distractions, when do we ever stop to listen? Most people don't question their path until something forces them to: a job loss, a personal crisis, an unexpected wake-up call. But what if we didn't have to wait for life to shake us awake? What if we could intentionally pause, step away from the noise, and reflect on whether the life we're building is actually the life we want? Solitude gives us that opportunity. Throughout history, those who have uncovered their true purpose have done so in silence. The Buddha left behind a palace of luxury not to escape, but to understand. Nikola Tesla would isolate himself for weeks, deep in thought, allowing ideas to emerge. Virginia Woolf wrote about the necessity of having a room of one's own, a sacred space where thoughts could take shape without interruption. Great ideas, great transformations, great awakenings, they don't happen in chaos. They happen in stillness. Science supports this. A Harvard study found that individuals who spend time in solitude develop stronger self-awareness, experience greater long-term happiness, and are more likely to pursue meaningful work. This is because when we disconnect from external influences, our brain naturally shifts into a reflective state, allowing us to see beyond the distractions and focus on what truly matters. That's why people often have their greatest realizations while walking alone, driving in silence, or spending time away from constant input. But solitude isn't just about clarity, It's about courage. It takes courage to step away from the expectations of others, to question whether we're on the right path, and to make changes when necessary. Many avoid this process because it's easier to stay busy, to keep chasing the next goal, to follow the script that society has written. But those who find true purpose are the ones who dare to ask, what do I truly want? What kind of life do I want to create? Not for others, but for myself? So here's a challenge. For the next 7 days, take 10 minutes each day to sit in silence. No distractions, no agenda, just you and your thoughts. Reflect on this question. If there were no pressure from society, what would I truly want to do with my life? Write down whatever comes to mind. The answer might not come immediately, but if you give yourself the space to listen, you might just hear something life-changing, the quiet voice of your true purpose calling you forward. Solving problems with a clear mind. In 1990, J.K. Rowling was sitting alone on a delayed train when an idea suddenly came to her. An idea that would later become Harry Potter. She had no pen, no paper, and no distractions. Just her thoughts. That moment of solitude changed her life forever. Some of the most brilliant ideas and solutions don't come from pressure or overthinking. They come when we allow our minds to slow down, to breathe, to process information without force. We often believe that solving problems requires nonstop effort, constant thinking, analyzing, and pushing for answers. But the truth is, the more we try to force a solution, the more elusive it becomes. Science proves that under stress, the brain activates the amygdala, making us reactive and emotionally driven. But when we step back, the prefrontal cortex, responsible for logic and creativity, takes over. This is why the best ideas often come when we least expect them, while taking a shower, driving in silence, or walking alone. The Buddha understood this long before neuroscience confirmed it. He taught that clarity doesn't come from resisting problems, but from observing them with a still mind. Albert Einstein knew this too. He often took long, quiet walks to process complex equations. Steve Jobs practiced walking meetings to encourage creative thinking. The greatest problem solvers in history understood one simple truth. A restless mind struggles to see solutions. A clear mind finds them effortlessly. Harvard researchers found that people who take breaks and practice solitude during difficult decision-making are 60% more likely to come up with innovative solutions than those who push through stress. This is why companies like Google and Apple encourage thinking time, because stepping back, rather than pushing harder, leads to breakthrough ideas. But in today's fast-paced world, we are rarely encouraged to pause. We are told to work harder, react faster, and solve problems immediately. But what if the real key to solving your biggest challenges isn't in doing more, but in doing less? What if clarity comes not from thinking harder, but from thinking less? So here's the challenge. Next time you're stuck on a problem, don't force a solution. Step away. Go for a walk without your phone. Sit in silence for 10 minutes. Let your mind wander. Pay attention to what happens when you allow yourself space. You might just find that the solution you were searching for was waiting in the quiet all along. The power of solitude to change your life. Imagine waking up one day and realizing that everything you've been chasing, success, approval, connection, was never the key to fulfillment. Imagine understanding, deep in your core, that true peace was never something to be found outside of you, but something waiting to be uncovered within. Solitude is not about being alone. It's about discovering who you are when the noise of the world fades. It is about realizing that you don't need external validation, constant distractions, or a perfectly curated life to feel whole. Everything you need is already inside you. You just have to be still long enough to see it. Throughout this journey, we've explored how solitude strengthens the mind, fuels creativity, builds resilience, and helps us rediscover our true purpose. It is in silence that we gain clarity. It is in stillness that our greatest insights emerge. Some of the most influential people in history: Buddha, Nikola Tesla, Steve Jobs, Nelson Mandela, used solitude not as an escape, but as a tool for transformation. Their stories remind us that solitude is not a weakness, but a superpower. But let's be honest, most people will hear this and continue filling every moment with distractions. They will avoid solitude because sitting with their own thoughts feels uncomfortable. But that discomfort is exactly where growth begins. The question is, will you be one of the few who embrace it? Right now, you have a choice. You can continue as you always have, busy, distracted, constantly moving, but never quite arriving. Or you can take a different path. You can start small, just a few moments of solitude each day. A few minutes of silence in the morning before reaching for your phone. A quiet walk without music, without checking notifications. A moment of stillness before making an important decision. Over time, these moments will reshape your mind, your clarity, and ultimately, your life. If this message resonated with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share this video with someone who needs to hear it. And if you want more insights on mindfulness, self-discovery, and the wisdom of solitude, make sure to subscribe and hit the notification bell. There's so much more we can explore together. And if you're ready to go deeper, check out my other videos where we break down the practical steps to mastering your mind and living with greater purpose. Because at the end of the day, the greatest journey you will ever take is the one within.